Welcome to After Effects. We're going to start by making a new project. Let's go ahead and save that project. We'll save the project as Yo-Yo, and we'll save that to the desktop. Now, within that project, I'm going to have at least one composition. It's important to note that you could have multiple compositions within the same project. And that'll make more sense later. So we'll make a new composition either by pulling down new composition over here or by just launching new composition from there. So within there, I'm going to have a composition called Yo-Yo again. I'm using HDTV 1080p at 24 frames per second, which is again typical film rate. Of course, the frame rate can vary depending on the kind of project that you're doing. Since we're working in animation, that will be fine for our purposes today, and our duration will be 30 seconds. Okay, the background color also is white, just to remind you that is set down here in background color. I can make that any color, obviously, that I want to. Now, the next thing that I want to do, because I want to make sure that things are centered within my piece here for what I want to do, I want to actually be able to show. So the first thing I did here was set up a title action safe. And so this is really kind of cool because it shows me where, what would be off screen, for example, if I was being broadcast, if my project was being broadcast on television, for example. So in our case, I've also put on the rulers, and I'll show you how I got there. That's by down here. You can also set some of this up under the View menu, and then I'm also doing Snap to Guides here, show rulers up here. Snap to Guides, let me show you why I'm going to do that. So I'm going to set these guides up that'll give me the perfect center point for this particular composition. Now that's going to be important because I'm making a yo-yo with some repeater shapes on the inside, and so making sure I'm in the center is important. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a layer. I'm going to make a shape layer. So this layer is going to be full of various circles that you'll see in just a second. And so my shape layer, I'm actually going to rename that by right-clicking. I'm going to rename, and I'm going to call that Yo-Yo Circles, for lack of a better name. Okay, so by holding down Yo-Yo Circles or making sure that's selected, I'm going to make my first circle, which will be an ellipse. I'm going to create my ellipse by holding down the Shift key on my computer and pulling out. Okay, so you can see under Yo-Yo Circles, I now have an ellipse under Contents. Okay, so let's just look at our timeline here and see what we have. So we have a shape layer. Under the shape layer, I have Contents. Under the Contents, I have the first layer, which is ellipse 1. Which is fine. So what I'm going to do with ellipse 1, this is my set of tools up here that I can use. First thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I am perfectly centered in here. So you have this thing right here, this little center point, and it's really important to be able to align that, with the center point, the cross section here of the background. And that looks good. Now, with the shape layer, I can go up and I can fill the shape in whatever way I want to. This is obviously doing it with a solid color. I could do it with, any kind of gradient, etc. that I would want. Okay, so if I wanted to change the fill color, I can come down to the fill information that is contained in the timeline here, and I can alter that color. So if I wanted to make this more of like a gold circle, I could. And I can also change the stroke. If I don't want to have any stroke at all, I'll click on the outside and I'll just say no stroke, and that will get rid of the stroke. If I decide to put a stroke in there with a solid color, I can change the stroke size, as you can see. Now that could also be handy in terms of making a yo-yo, but for my purposes, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to turn the stroke outside off. Now I'd like to make another circle. If I make another circle inside this shape layer, let's go ahead and do that. Now I have this ellipse, and I want to change that color a bit, so I'll make that like a darker color. And now let's say that I want to get that ellipse, my second ellipse here, right? So I want to get this ellipse path, and I just want to center it so it's in the middle as well. Okay. All right, now these two circles travel together, okay, if that makes sense, because they're in the same shape layer. If they were different shape layers, they would work more independently. Sometimes that's good and sometimes that's not good. And for our purposes, this is going to work out very well because when we go to animate this, we want them all working together.